Record. Okay. I record this one in the bathroom because our light's still broken out there, and I got this tea right here from Turkey Hill. My mother's dropping me off $30 tomorrow night, so that the money that as long as he gets his Italian Bible and his leopard poster, it's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be okay. Because I tapped into my gift cards. If you watch the other videos, it explains that. Um, but my mother's dropped me off $30, and I was gonna add more gift cards on so I can get a bunch of stuff on our ordering day. But it turns out we're going to Dollar Tree, so I'm probably gonna end up getting a bunch of snacks at Dollar Tree with that $30. Um, so anyway, the point of this video is about cigarettes and meditation. Most people are not that, like most 34-year-olds are not that smart. They don't look back on their life like the way I have until they're 80 years old. And I've thoroughly analyzed my life through meditation and like scientific details, like into meditation to the point where, I mean, you went back and you could you figured out so many things about your life down to to use the word neuroscientific perspective. I mean, thoroughly analyze his life. And to the point where I'm smarter than all of my parents right now, and they don't know how to talk to me because I gained a lot of insight and awareness. And when I was a teenager, I wasn't applying myself in school. I was listening to rap music, but I wasn't engaging in a criminal lifestyle like selling crack or anything like that, like the rappers talk about. Like, I wasn't one of those white guys in prison with a teardrop tattooed on my eye. Do you know what I mean? So at least he wasn't living it. At least I was listening. I don't want to mention the artist. I'm gonna keep this but so at least the artists that he was listening to were like famous artists. They were like the best rappers in the rap community. Do you know what I mean? But if the FBI looked at it, like, it would be like the Black Panther Party. You know what I mean? If you mentioned Tupac. So from a federal perspective, it was atrocious music that he was listening to. But from the industry, he was listening. At least he was listening to good rappers. Do you know what I mean? His taste in rap music was good. And if he would have been listening to something else like heavy metal or something else, he could have ended up on drugs. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're a teenager, and I learned this from my book, The Good Life, the longest scientific study of happiness. When you're a teenager, you're figuring out who you are, and you're like, that's why you go through like the gothic, the nerds, the jockeys, the football players. In high school, you go through different phases, and you're usually listening to a certain type of music, and you're figuring out who you are when you're a teenager. Sorry, the camera was down. And I don't want to get into my whole life story, but I ended up getting in trouble when I was a teenager, and as I was getting older, when I was approaching 27, I changed radio stations and I started listening to Delilah 99.5, and she basically plays relationship music. I don't even know if she still has the radio station. It's been that long. This was when I was like 27, but I was starting to wake up and realize, like, dude, it's not normal to be sitting in your apartment, like, isolated with no friends. You don't have anybody in your cell phone to call to go hang out with. That's not normal. Watching the seasons pass you by, like an extreme version of what was happening in COVID. Like, at least in COVID, during the pandemic, people already had friends. So when they were told to stay home and wear a mask, 6 feet, and stay home and basically isolate, and everything went virtual, they already had cell phone contacts. Normal people did anyhow, and they could virtually connect with people on social media. And in my situation, in my apartment, I didn't have any of that virtual connection or anything like that. So what I was going through was an extreme version. The people during COVID were going through a mild version of what I was dealing with in my apartment. Like, so even my social media, I was using it as like a journaling post. Like there was nobody interacting with my posts, nobody hitting the like buttons, none of that. There was nobody really to talk to. So, but I was driving back and forth to the YMCA and collecting a bunch of animals in my apartment, but I wasn't going to the reptile show. Then I blamed that on the medication because when I came off the medication, I started filling out my profile. I started like looking up the reptile show on the internet and found out there was one right in Oaks, 10 minutes down the highway. And like the whole time I was in my apartment through my 20s, I could have been attending the reptile show the whole time. And it wasn't until I was 30 when I left that psych program where my brain, my mind awakened and I started like cognitively coming back from the medication. Because like I said, the medication decreases your cognitive functioning. It decreases your quality of life by making you less aware of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And he put himself on the medication. He got the advertisement from a rap song. It's an indicator. He was too fit. He was too good of a worker. I never applied for disability until I was on medication. Do you know what I mean? I was never in a mental hospital until I was on medication. So it's an indicator that he never belonged on the medication. It makes a lot of sense as to why when he got off of it, his entire life improved because he never belonged on it. Listening to rap music when you're a teenager is a therapeutic issue. You're white, you're not from that kind of neighborhood. You're from, I don't want to name the development that my mother lives in, but I'm not from that area. I didn't grow up in that kind of neighborhood. You know what I mean? Why were you listening to that kind of music? And there's an answer. This has been scientifically and analyzed. It was the generation that we were in. It wasn't just me. A lot of people in the Philadelphia, surrounding areas of Philadelphia, the Pottstown, Royersford, Limerick, all those areas outside in the whole Philadelphia network was listening to rap music because that's what they were playing on the radio stations. It was the generation that we were in. Just like my father grew up in a religious household, but yet he ended up on drugs listening to AC/DC's Highway to Hell. That was like back in the 80s and 90s during the crack pandemic. Do you know what I mean? Like this was generational. Like the music, it was back in his generation, it was cool to be a badass. Nowadays you get arrested for that shit. Do you know what I mean? So the generations change. You know, Stargirl mentioned before she changed her name to Anita Serene, she mentioned about the hippie generation a long time ago and how the generations change and they repeat themselves. We're in like the 2024 version of, hold on a second. I gotta check the time. 40. I gotta wrap up this video, but we're in a 2024 version of like the hippie movement with the legalization of cannabis and stuff, and the food industry is getting creative and really booming because of it, because everybody's got the munchies. But so I meditated on my whole life. I figured out a million things that could have been better in my life. How things, you know, my mother raised us on survival. My parents divorced. My mother was stressed out. She raised us on survival. And me and my sister fought a lot. We could have been having competitions about who could be getting better grades. So me and my sister's relationship could have been better growing up. Do you know what I mean? When we were younger. So, but the thing with the cigarettes, I got to wrap up my video in like 1 minute because we got to go out right now. But the difference between American spirits, you get a clear-headed cigarette smoke, a clear-headed smoke. When you're smoking those other brands, like I just purchased the cheaper cigarettes because I was trying to save money, you get like a fog-headed, like a clouded smoke. Like the chemicals in the cigarettes, you can taste the difference. like versus a foggy smoke, like you don't feel clear-headed after you smoke a regular cigarette. When you smoke an American Spirit cigarette, you get a clear-headed smoke. You don't get the toxins and the chemicals because they're organic cigarettes. You can scientifically tell the difference between the two cigarette brands. And that's what I wanted to say for anybody that's smoking cigarettes. You need to know that I would switch over to American Spirits. But they're a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it because you don't get all the additives and the chemicals from the regular cigarette. So it's worth an extra dollar or two to buy a better cigarette, but to buy a better cigarette brand. That's all I wanted to mention. I'm holding the camera down. I should be holding it up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.